Hello and welcome to the Sacred Pearl podcast with myself, Reverend Arlene Fedornis from Reverend Arlene Fedornis Ministries. And I am so excited. I have a guest on the podcast today, my very good friend, Marie. My gosh, we were friends in elementary school. Then we lost contact for quite a while. And then probably around 2015, maybe, I think. No, not, no,
No,
2006.
like 2008.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2008.
six probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, because
before Joe and I met.
yes. And because Gabriel was born in 2006. So I
Hmm.
knew I already had Gabriel. So yeah, like 2007, 2008, we reconnected and now she's stuck with me. Um, so,
Yep.
so I'm going to share a little bit of a bio with you about Marie, and then we are going to get started. She has had a pretty, you know, a wild ride in this human experience. So I wanted her to come on
Yeah.
and share her story. And yeah, but we'll get started. So I'm gonna have to read off my phone. I apologize. Okay, so Marie is a dedicated volunteer advocate at CCS, driven by her personal journey with lobular breast cancer, diagnosed at 44. Passionate about the importance of early detection, screening, and self-advocacy, she strives to empower others facing similar challenges. Marie's commitment to cancer awareness is further fueled by her experience as a caregiver for her beloved mother, who battled both dementia and cancer and passed away in 2016. Her mother was her greatest inspiration, instilling in her the strength to confront cancer head on. Through sharing her and her mother's story, Marie hopes to honor her mother and aims to take a stand on critical cancer issues and raise awareness for those impacted by the disease. She embraces any opportunity to connect with others and foster dialogue about the importance of advocacy, support, and education in the fight against cancer. Marie believes that together we can make a meaningful difference in the lives of many. Thank you so much, Marie. So,
Thank you for having me.
I
I'm so
yeah,
excited to be
I
here.
know you're like my first guest to ever like be on the podcast. So it's
I
hopefully it's
know.
something that I can, do a little bit more often, is which I would like to bring other people on to share, you know, their stories because I believe it's important. And like you said, through that dialogue, through that awareness, you know, it can only empower and impact others, right? And it's such a
Yeah.
healing process for all those involved, so they don't feel so alone. I
Yeah.
hope so.
And I
That's why.
think it's
Mhm.
especially, um, I don't know, meaningful, I think, for me to be here today because you have been such an impact and a support in my journey, like right from the beginning. So, yeah, I think it's like kind of like full circle in a way.
Mhm. So tell us a little bit more. I know I read your little bio, but tell us more about you and your story.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I was a caregiver to my mother. At the time, I lived in a home with my mother and my father, my two children, two nieces that my parents and I were helping raise. And at the time, I was dating my now husband, who I have two bonus daughters. And we were actually married on no, sorry, October the 8th, and my mother passed November 16th of that year. So that was probably like the first, I would say, real blow that life kind of had at me. Because right before that, I think I was like cloud nine. I was happy in my bubble and thriving. And in 2022 was when I was diagnosed with stage three lobular breast cancer. And at the time, I was working downtown Monday to Friday. I had actually landed like my dream job, I guess you could say, in my mind, anyways. Like I climbed the corporate ladder. I was a branch manager for a major insurance giant. And it really kind of hit me out of nowhere. There wasn't even a blip on the radar being 44. And actually, it was my husband who was pushing me to go in to get checked because my mother had been sick and I had put off a lot of my tests. Short detour. I had two open heart surgeries before the age of 4. I was a
Mhm.
preemie. And so, as a result of that prematurity, I had a lot of heart issues, a heart murmur, narrow heart valve, and a hole in my heart. So they went in at 8 months and put a stent, and again at 4 years old. And the reason I think it's important to my story is that my breast cancer was not genetic. And in fact, one of the surgeons, her theory was it was as a result of all the radiation I had received as a young child, and that she had
And,
seen another case of a young girl, not heart issues, something else with the chest, but again, she
mhm.
also developed breast cancer, which I thought was
Wow.
interesting.
Could you explain a little bit what is lobular breast cancer?
Yes. So it was initially graded stage 2, but when they went in, they noticed that I had infringed on the lymph nodes. I had about 4 or 5 that came back, so that upgraded it to stage 3. Now, lobular for me, it meant that it was in the breast tissue, like the milk ducts and the tissue. And because of that, there was no option for lumpectomies or to remove a tumor. Like it was straight mastectomy, and it was about 10 centimeters. So it was a
Wow.
very large, but my cancer was, I always hate when people say it and I don't like to say it, but
Mhm,
I guess the good kind in the sense is it wasn't as aggressive. So yes, the tumor was large, but it had not spread to other places as yet.
mhm. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so
So
the you said the mastectomy, right? So that was
yes,
is that so that's the actual removal of the breast, or how
removal
does
of the right breast was done
right?
in
Okay,
November. I
okay.
then went through chemo and radiation. They
Hmm.
then went back in and cleared all the lymph nodes in my arm as a
Hmm.
precaution for reoccurrence.
Hmm.
What else? There was so much fun. Oh, I had a hysterectomy. So that was a choice I made, and that was supported by my oncologist because of my mother's history. And
Hmm.
she passed of uterine cancer. So for me, I was just like, as I said, between my husband and I, we had 4 children. And so I
Hmm.
just thought, we'll go ahead and just do the hysterectomy if it's going to prevent it. And because up until that point, I was taking injections every 28 days to suppress my estrogen. So this allowed me to not have to go for any further injections.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I think that was the extent of it. But the crazy thing is, earlier in this year, February, I developed cataracts, which is also, a lot of people complain after chemo that they do develop vision issues. And again, I mean, you might be able to tell a little bit um, in the right eye, so the right side of my body. And then out of nowhere, like last week, I just lost my vision in my right eye. And it was like almost like a black, like I have no vision right now in this right eye, period. But when I went to the doctor, it was diagnosed as retina detachment. So yeah, my retina has actually detached, and they do say that that's also a side effect of cataract surgery. And then you lump in the fact that I was a lot younger than most having cataract
Hmm.
surgery, that apparently does increase your chances as well for retina
Hmm.
detachment. So yeah, it's like I feel like a potato head, like these pieces keep falling off. Pieces aren't going back on. So yeah, it's been fun. So I actually go for surgery on Monday, and we're hoping that at least some of the vision will be restored. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Awesome. And so because I've known you for so many years, um,
Yeah.
so through all this, and because I know you, and you are such a spiritual type of person, right? So has that been something that, like, is that where you gained so much of your strength and optimism? Like, has that been an influence in how you handled,
Oh,
and
100%.
navigated yourself through all this? So, can
Yeah.
you maybe talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so again, I would always, reference my mother as one of my greatest mentors. She was always, like personified sunshine, and she herself had a very difficult life, but she always smiled and she always found the best in life and always wanted to leave others better than she found them. And so I think part of my healing um, was helping others and being of service, which comes from the spiritual side. How can I serve today? How can I be of service to others? And I think for me, you and I have always kind of shared that spiritual connection.
Mhm.
And like you're actually one of my longest friends, actually, when I think. But I know, and I did mention it in one of my interviews, and I remember very early on when I had told you my diagnosis, your response, and I don't remember the words exactly, but something along the lines of, well, maybe this is, you know, the body's way of slowing you down.
Mhm.
And so I really leaned into that. And I really do believe that our body does manifest emotions. And you can get angry about it for sure. And I've met a lot of angry people and a lot of bitter people. Thankfully for me, my spirituality and my faith and my positivity has been something. And I don't want to spread toxic positivity because that's not what I'm talking about. It's
Mhm.
you really have to feel the feelings, and it's okay. Like there's been days where I did sit there and cry, but then I'm like, okay, Marie, put your big girl panties on. Like, let's get back up, and it's time to get back to living. And I think that's so important. It is sometimes a, a real effort and a choice.
Mhm.
Um, but interesting, when I do speak to doctors, oncologists, and surgeons, they all have the same belief that your mental um, outlook does
Mhm.
also impact your
Mhm.
not success, but I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for, your overall
Your progress.
well-being.
Yeah,
Yeah, your
yeah.
progress, yeah, for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm. Um, there's something I was going to ask and I lost it. Yeah. Well, I was gonna say too, like when you were saying about that, like it's not about that spiritual bypassing, right? That it's not, it's, and that's something that, that I've always admired about you too, right? Which is just like, it is, you get those people who do, you know, their intentions are well, right? Like they mean well, but that doesn't really support you, right? Because it's just more of like, if you're doing the spiritual bypass of like everything's just love and light, then you're not experiencing the
No,
emotions and you're just suppressing it, which is going to make it worse because then it's going to
absolutely.
manifest as something else,
And
right?
I think that's, well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I know that you and I have had that conversation years now. And that's why I say I don't want people to mistake positivity for toxic positivity. I'm not saying avoid the feelings. I'm not saying pretend like everything's okay. It's okay to not be okay. And it's
Yep.
okay to say that. And I think it's important, especially when others are looking at you and they're admiring perhaps your strength.
Mhm.
It's so important to turn around and say, but I'm not always okay. It's like I kind of look at, when we idolize celebrities or sports people, we see them as superhuman and it's not. It's not that at all. So I think it's important that we share our stories you know, and that's just it. It's for me, it's helping others find their tools. Spirituality worked for me.
Mhm.
I was never a religious person, but spirituality was more my way of doing things, and so I leaned into that, and that worked well for me. It might not work for others, but maybe support groups work for them. Again, my advocacy was also a very big piece of my healing. So, being able, I think you and I grew up just behind that generation. So we were kind of taught that we don't speak about our feelings. It's
Mhm.
embarrassing. We don't share what's going on. And so for a long time, we did hold things in.
Yeah.
I know that
Mhm.
I did, or, parents back in that day. I mean, it's not like today. I know you and I as mothers, we're also very different. Like how was your day and how are you feeling and how are you,
Mhm.
but it wasn't like that. It was like, stop crying. Why are you crying? I'll give you something to
Mhm.
cry about. Like,
Yeah.
so
Mhm. Yeah. And how,
it's very
you don't know how
different.
lucky you have it and blah, 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 right? And
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And I don't fault them. That's the
No.
generation that they came out of, you know. But at the same time, I think we learn to hold a lot in.
Mhm.
And even when I think in respects to my mother, you know, I sometimes I really sit back and I was like, I don't think I ever really asked her how her life really impacted her. I knew the stories, but I never really, asked her, how did that feel? You know? So I think
Yeah.
that's important that we share our stories and we kind of break down that stigma, much like therapy, right? Therapy is seen as,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, well, I'm not crazy. Why would I go to therapy? And
Yeah.
that's kind of, the same thing with this. People don't want to talk about breast. I'm part of at least four different support groups. And it's funny because each group is very different. There are ones that no one knows they have cancer. They wear their wigs, their neighbors don't know, some of their family doesn't even know. And that's how they like it. And that's wonderful
Mhm.
for them. It's whatever everybody's comfortable. But I do think that those of us who are comfortable sharing our voice, that it's important that we do so that nobody feels alone and that we can kind of break down that stigma and raise awareness. I just went to a cancerversary party, cancer-free slash birthday, and the young lady, who's such a beautiful lady, also very positive, like she's just beautiful, 23 years old. And I think that's what we need to understand, that breast cancer is not something that hits in your 50s, 60s, and 70s anymore. I mean, we see children with cancer, so I'm not sure why it doesn't really register in our minds. But as humans, we have that fucking happened to me syndrome, I think. So it's
Mhm.
important to, raise awareness for our sisters and our friends and everybody there. So, and I think for me, my story is a little bit different than most. I did decline reconstructive surgery for my own choice. And I think it's a very personal decision, and it's, something that each person has to decide for themselves. In my case, I just felt like I did not want to go through a cosmetic procedure after my body had been through so much. And with my heart history, I thought I'm 47 now. I don't know what the next 10, 20 years will bring. And so I didn't really want to muck around up there. But I mean, if I'm leaning into my spiritual side, the message that I kept getting was it's important for me to show my daughter and my stepdaughters and my now granddaughter um, that, you're not defined by having two breasts. And so my message really is you can feel whole. I do have a custom prosthetic, and I am a
Mhm.
custom breast form ambassador for Mona Canada. And so that's kind of my message. Like, I think that we have to, it does hit you emotionally, and I'm not gonna, again, not sugarcoating it. There was very dark, dark days, but I
Mhm.
think eventually you come out of it and you say, okay, well, do I really want to put my body through more? And my answer was
Mhm.
no. For me, that was no. And I want other women to know that there's options. Because I think when I first went in, it's like, okay, mastectomy, reconstruction. And there wasn't really many conversations of like, well, you could do this or you could do this, and kind of let you settle with those options. It was kind of like, well, this is the most common
Normal.
route, and this is what everyone's doing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Mhm. Can you explain a little bit more of what CCS is, and then, speak more about the different advocacies that you are connected with? And then you also said, I'm not going to remember the name. You just mentioned it, the
Amona?
yes, and talk a little bit more about what that is. So for people who are
Yeah.
maybe, and even just like where you found some of those, like the information so that you knew there was other options. Like if you didn't want to do the reconstruction, like, just kind of help,
Yeah.
people understand kind of like your process and like where you got this information so that if they are in
Yeah.
the same boat, they know who to contact.
And that's funny because that's one of the programs that I am working on with the hospital now, is to
Mhm.
kind of bridge that gap between the patient on the onset of diagnosis and the doctors with the community. Because I think it took me about a good year or so to even find a support group that I felt that I was connected to. It was a lot of my own homework and I guess that sort of thing. I did get very lucky. The boutique that I went to for my surgical bras was Pink Ribbon in Markham. And out of the luck of the draw, the owner invited me to be a mastectomy model for Amona, Canada. And so, as you can see, I don't know if you can see, but I did actually get certified as a mastectomy fitter. And so, yay, all of these
Congratulations.
boutiques came from across Canada,
Mhm.
from the East Maritimes to Quebec, and Amona brought them to the head office and they were getting certified to fit women for their prosthetics and the bras.
That's amazing.
And I was the model because, as we know, there's not a lot one titty wonders out there, right? So where do they find
Yeah.
such a person? But I
Yeah.
guess she was like, oh my gosh, I just had this woman come in and she'll be good. So that's what I did. And while I was there, it's just they're like, you should be our custom breast form ambassador. And I was like, well, what's that? And they said,
Mhm.
well, in US and Germany, they have custom breast forms, and we will be bringing that technology to Canada. And so I was literally scanned, which is super exciting for anyone that's interested. It actually molds it right to your chest wall because, as we know, you are closed differently. Not everyone's a flat closure. For me, it's more concaved. Depends on, how the surgery left you. And so it actually is molded to the other one. And it's so cool. Are you ready? NASA technology. So you don't have like, a lot of times
Mhm.
your implants will be cold to the touch.
Mhm.
It's actually heat regulated to your body. So that's
Mhm.
super cool. So yes, I've named her Louise 2.0.
Of course.
Um, of
With your
course,
mom, Delma Louise.
because of my mom. Yep, Thelma and
Yeah.
Louise. So she's Louise 2.0. Again, a lot of it was my own. So I reached out to Canadian Cancer Society. Um, and I mean, if you just go to their site, they'll always list opportunities. I am a part of a program called ACT Leads, and essentially we meet with various levels of government and MPs and different people on the federal level. And we're really excited because one of our initiatives, which was just passed, and I'm sure you've heard, was where the age was dropped from 50 to 40 for mammograms. So that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the initiatives. And I'm actually going back to Ottawa in September, and we're delivering a petition of over 60,000 signatures on the cost of cancer. So, yeah, that to me is like, it's a call to action. So, I really do love that program. It's really been fulfilling for me. Aside from that, I am a run director for the Canadian Cancer Society. So that's CCS, the Canadian Cancer Society CIBC Run for the Cure. And I am a run director for the Peterborough site. I am also a volunteer with Breast Cancer Canada. So they have a trivia night coming down in Toronto in January, which is super exciting. If everyone's around, they can come join that. And what else? Yeah, I've really tried to get involved in any way I can. I've done, fashion shows with Wellsprings, which again, anybody who's, been touched, that's a great resource to reach out to as well. And I will suggest if you are a woman going through this, and even if you're a man, because it does
Yeah.
affect men, and I've met a couple of them, and you are still welcome here in our group, because unfortunately they don't have a lot of support.
Mhm.
But a couple of times I was part of boudoir photo shoots. And I know because I never thought I would do a boudoir photo shoot, but I do have to tell you, there's something so empowering and freeing about that when you've gone through such a thing. And I'm more than happy to connect you with a couple of the um, places that I had gone to who do run yearly what they call breast care confidence shoots.
That's
But
amazing.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I
And
do.
what about you have your Instagram and your Facebook groups. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes.
I love the
So
name of it.
I know, I love it. It took me a while to come up with it, but so my Instagram is Tit Talk with your breastie. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on my own blog and hopefully podcast down the road, but I've been so busy with my volunteering that kind of took a side seat, but I do have a support group, and like I said, my hope is to connect with the hospitals and start a program where, people can get more connected early on in the diagnosis because I think it's so important. Like I was lucky, of course, I had you, Arlene. I had, my father and my husband and my children. But the reality is, eventually you just want to be their wife or their mother or their friend, and you don't want to always talk about cancer. So I think it's super important to find those groups early on. And I'm not, and well, yeah, I'm going to say it. I think you should compartmentalize a little bit. Like I'm going to go have coffee with the Bloom Club, which is one of the cancer groups that I meet with, and they're lovely. They are younger than I am. for the majority, under 40. But you know what? We go for coffee and we just talk about whatever we want. And yeah, I have an hour to, speak with others and listen to theirs. And then I go home and then I get to be Marie again. And I think that's so important than rather than just sitting there in the cancer 24/7.
Mhm. Yeah. And I guess too, when you think about it, like as much as, like a friend or a family can be supportive, it's never really, I would assume it's never really the same as being with someone who has maybe not gone through exactly what you've gone through, but has a better understanding, right? Like there's just a
Yeah, of
different level of
course.
compassion, I guess, in that,
Yeah.
right? I would have think, right?
Yeah. And I
So,
think, it's a vulnerable situation, especially
mhm,
when you're talking about one of your, your female anatomy.
yeah.
I think, yeah, if someone has gone through it, you feel a little bit more open. Like the boudoir photo shoot that I was asked to do again by the Pink Ribbon. And it was actually beautiful. What they did is
Mhm,
they took all the prints and they put it in like almost like an art gallery type setting. And we went
mhm,
for this great reveal, and the pictures were just amazing. But the story behind it was in the beginning, it was almost like the story of there was a few of us that were further along in our journey, and some of us who were like myself, very new. And in the beginning, we're kind of awkward. We don't know these people. What do you mean I'm supposed to get naked, like topless?
mhm,
What? And then by the end, we were all just like, woo! Like we had just all kind of bonded and we were able to kind of like let go. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment in the sense that, there are places where you can be safe to just be vulnerable because it is
mhm,
it is hard and it can be a pride thing. And I know that I've gone out a few times early on and I was not ready to be in a social scene. Even watching TV was a trigger for me. So it's like, you put on a movie and I'm there with my husband and you somehow feel inadequate, and
mhm,
that's the reality of it. Like those are real feelings that come up. And it's
mhm,
so important for people to know that it doesn't just end. In fact, I don't think my depression set in until after treatment was done. And a lot of people do
mhm,
say that once you're kind of, not being seen as much, that's
mhm,
when the feelings really start. And I think I I really do relate it a lot to grief, like the death of a loved one, right? So during the funeral process, everyone's around. It's not till you get home and you see their shoes or their robe and you're all alone that, you really get that gut punch of, what this actually means now. And so, yes, in the beginning, everyone's wonderful. But then you also learn quickly, who your real loved ones are. I mean, I had family members that never even came to see me, never even reached out. So that's the unfortunate part. So,
mhm.
you really do learn who your real friends are too. But I think it's important to just be kind to yourself at the end of the day.
So with all of this, like again, because the conversations we've had and coming from that like spiritual type of, I guess, bird's eye view of this, what do you feel is the, or if you do at all, again, right, there's no pressure or
Yeah,
assumption, but what do you feel that through this, has this like, I guess maybe just changed your or brought you a different perception of just like your life or just like who you are? Like, do you feel like this, even though yes, it's been uncomfortable and it's kind of turned your world upside down, but do you feel that it actually gave you something maybe you didn't have before that now you do? Like, I don't know. Do you understand like kind of what
absolutely.
I'm
No,
saying?
I,
Like,
I do really think that I've gained, and I do say, I had said to, I don't want to say cancer is a blessing. I like that sounds
mm,
so wrong to say, but I will say that through my cancer journey, I have been given a lot of blessings, and I think personal transformation is one of them. And I think it's, especially for you and I to have this conversation because you've seen me from such a young age,
mhm,
my family history. And so I think it really did. Like I will say that the greatest thing I brought out of this was boundaries. And it was funny because I went to a lymphatic drainage, which again, if you're going through this, lymphatic drainage, 100%, I do
mhm,
suggest you do that. But she said to me, "Did you ever stop and think why you got cancer?" And I said, no, I'm not really that kind of person. Like, why me? She goes, no, but like breast cancer. And I was like,
Mhm.
no. She goes, well, did you ever think about why your mother got it back in the stomach and or the uterus? And I was like, no. And she goes, because your mother carried people and your breast is a form of nurturing. And
Mhm.
so that was like the spiritual connection that I think I kind of needed. And it was like the wake-up call that it's true. And as you know, and we're very similar in our personalities, it's always everybody first. And of course, we're moms, right? And then we throw in our parents in the mix. And so I think coming out of this, I did really learn to, I will always love everybody from afar, especially distant family, even if they were not there for me through this. That's okay. Like grief, people deal with things very differently as well.
Mhm.
But I think it really showed me that taking care of yourself isn't just how you eat. It's what you surround yourself with. It's what you listen to. And of course, I've heard it. It's so cliche, but until you actually go through something like this, you are so hyper focused. You're now like, you know what? I am not going to waste this one wild, precious life anymore. And you really do choose what you do. So, I mean, maybe for me, it's like I don't watch TV as much as I did.
Mhm.
It's like to me, it's like wasted time. I'd rather listen to a podcast or an Audible or, just choices of how
Mhm.
you want to spend your life. And, I've had people say, oh, like, oh my gosh, like you're always so busy, like you're always on the go, like it's this cancer. But that's what brings me joy. And so
Mhm.
that's what I'm more about right now is bringing me joy. And yeah, and I think that's where the spiritual, you really do change in the sense that, I do believe that my body did manifest a lot of trauma
Mhm.
from early years for a lot of reasons.
Mhm.
And so I'm now I am more, and this could be menopause too. So I don't want to credit
Mhm.
breast cancer, but I'm a lot more vocal. Like if somebody does something to me, I will say right away, I don't like that. I don't agree with that. And I just let it go rather than
Mhm.
letting it fester in my
Internalize it.
body.
Yeah.
Do you find that you're
Mhm.
like that too lately?
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. But what I'm going through the most is like the hot flashes. Oh, like
Mm.
sweating worse than a hooker in church is like the joke,
Oh
right?
my gosh. Drenched. Like I would wake up
Yes.
drenched every night.
Yeah.
It's brutal. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I feel like I'm 80. Like the joints are going on me and the hot flashes in my knees. And
Yes.
oh, I don't even
Yeah.
know what's going on anymore. That's what I said. I feel like a potato head. It's like, I was
Yeah.
thinking about this the other day and I'm like, wow, all those childhood games that we played. It's like Hungry Hippos was like the chemo, eating my
Mhm.
cells. And now it's like Potato Head where all the pieces are falling off and Operation where it's every time they touch something, I get something else.
Mhm.
Crazy.
Yes, I know. But it's kind of like too, like if it isn't for the sense of humor, like I always say that too. Like if it wasn't for my sense of humor or like my sarcasm, like I put sarcasm on everything, like I don't know, like how, what I mean? Like that's what people,
I
always
don't
say
know
to
how
me too.
people
Like,
walk through it.
yeah,
Yeah. You
yeah,
could go very dark very quick. Like you and I are
yeah,
very like I always find the humor in things. I have a picture of my
yeah,
granddaughter holding my prosthetic. Like, and I thought it was
mm,
hilarious where some people are
yeah,
like, oh my God, like that's so
yeah,
offensive. And I'm like, it's hilarious. Like
exactly.
it's an emotional tit. Like it's a support
Yeah,
tit. That's awesome.
yeah.
Maybe every
It's
baby should
supporting
have
her
one.
too. Yeah, it's supporting her too, you
Yeah.
know, and it helps her feel closer to you, right? Like we don't know,
Yeah.
Like I know people get so like sensitive
Yeah,
on
there's a lot
everything.
of sensitivity these days. And,
Mm,
as I'm learning too, even in the cancers, it's like they don't
yeah,
like the word fight.
yeah.
Apparently, yep, they don't want that verbiage
Wow.
used, you
Wow.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I was surprised about. But I do kind of understand because I never really liked saying that my mother lost her battle,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So I do get it.
Yeah.
And I don't really think that my mother lost her battle. I think, beating cancer isn't the way, whether it takes us or not, it's how we live with it. That's
Yeah.
how we win. That's how we
Yeah.
beat cancer. Because it can
Yeah.
take a lot from you, and it has, like the hair and the eyebrows and the eyelashes. And I don't even have
Hmm.
nose hairs anymore. Like all I do is sneeze all day long. Like just like the weirdest things that happen to your body after
Hmm.
chemo is so funny
Hmm.
to me. But it can't take away your sense of humor and it can't take away your spirit. So that's the one thing I think is important to remember that, we are still here and maybe being a
Mhm.
mom and a grandma like that, changes
Mhm.
things for me because it's like what they're watching,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of like that
Yeah.
thing, like, do I want to body shame myself when my daughter's watching me,
Yeah.
complaining about her body?
Mhm. Yeah. Makes complete sense. One thing I was wondering too, and again, like I don't know if this applies to you or not, just taking out speaking to other people who have, other friends who have had breast cancer as well, or just, having clients who have had, you know, different sorts of cancer. Sometimes, they go through that, and I don't know if you experience that, where it's like, okay, you were diagnosed, okay, so now you're in like remission, and it's almost like that sensation of like, oh my gosh, I've been given the second chance at life. And then it's almost like this level of processing these different emotions of like now you feel like almost like this pressure of like I have to do, be this person now, or it's like, and then like that guilt of like, what am I doing with myself? Like, did you feel any kind of pressure on
Mm.
yourself of like, now that, I've put
It's
myself
almost like
through remission, I've
survivor's
got,
guilt.
yeah,
That's what it
almost something
sounds
like that.
like.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, did you ever kind of experience something like that where you felt like, oh my gosh, now I have to be this person, and then you like eventually brought yourself here? Like, did you go through any of that, or have you
No,
talked to anybody with that?
that's interesting. No,
Mm-hmm.
I think for myself, and I don't know, maybe it comes from early on, as you know. So, I mean, my parents
Mm-hmm.
were always like, "You're not a mistake," because that's what my siblings
Mm-hmm.
would tell you. I wasn't even
Yeah.
supposed to be here, but they'd be like, "You're a miracle," and it was always like, I don't know, maybe I always had gratitude for life to begin
Mm-hmm.
with.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I did know that I wanted to be of service, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
not so much the pressure of it, but
Mm-hmm.
I could see how that would be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I could really see
Yeah.
how that would be a thing for
Mm-hmm.
most people. But no, I just knew that having gone through this, there had to be a purpose. That was
Mm-hmm.
what was in my mind. Not that
Mm-hmm.
everything happens for a reason. Again, I know people don't
Yeah.
like that, but I just
Mm-hmm.
felt like there has to be a purpose. There's a
Mm-hmm.
calling here, and
Yeah.
I have to follow the calling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not pressure, it was kind of more like curiosity and excitement.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
really crappy, but something good's going to come out of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of
And I
where
remember,
my
because I
thoughts were.
remember, yeah, because I remember too, like when your mom, when you're, being the caregiver for your mom, and then after her passing, like I remember that you already had that in you of like, no, I want to be this advocate and start doing this. And it's just, and
Yeah.
it is interesting how now that, you've gone, gone through your own process with yourself and your own care, it's just interesting kind of like how the two mesh together, right? And
Yeah.
just, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just so, like I don't know if this is still a plan for you, because I remember one time too, you were talking about wanting to open up your own boutique. Is that still something that you're
Hmm.
thinking about? You want to maybe talk a
Yes.
little about that, like what you think that was, or because I know before too,
Yeah.
you had like a GoFundMe page too for that, right? Or do you
Yeah.
still
It
have
didn't
that
do very
going?
well,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I think so. I've really just been opening myself to all possibilities. And so my one thought was opening my own boutique where women could come and I would have support groups and bringing different people, nutritionists, and that's still my goal. And I think maybe for now, I'm really focusing on somehow bridging the hospitals. And so maybe my program slash boutique will
Mm-hmm.
be through the hospital. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of where I'm going for now because I think
Mm-hmm.
I could reach more people.
Yeah.
And my oncologist is looking to start a program within the
Mm-hmm.
hospital. And so I think we'll start working on that in September. So, will that boutique come to fruition? I hope so, because that's like my
Mm-hmm.
dream. Small town
Mm-hmm.
boutique, like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, I think I'm going to help with this program that she's starting to implement and see what comes. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what it's been. Like even my mastectomy certification, I never thought to do it, but I was there and I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I think that's another thing is, the life never happens how we plan it. So I've just been trying to say yes to as many opportunities as I can
Mm-hmm.
and see where it takes me. So, um, right now, I want to focus on supporting others.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in that and you feel alone, you can always reach out on my Instagram page. I'm
Mm-hmm.
always willing to talk to you, and I can always, help you connect with groups in your area. That's the wonderful thing about Canadian Cancer Society, even, or Breast Cancer
Mhm.
Canada. They're not just in Ontario, they're all over Canada. So,
Mhm.
if you need a contact, I can definitely hook you up.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll put your information in the description box too, so people can
Yeah,
follow you on Instagram or Facebook as well
yeah,
and
for
all that.
sure.
So yeah, and I'll do that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I guess, because we're coming to an end here. I don't know, do you have any like last thoughts that you want to, or actually, wait, no, hold back. So what are you doing for yourself? Like, as much as you're advocating and supporting others, what is it that you do for yourself on a daily, even just like, I guess on a daily basis, like what do you do for yourself to help support you so that you have the strength to be able to advocate and support others?
Hold that thought.
It,
Sorry, 1 second.
yeah,
Right
no,
back. Sorry.
yeah.
I'm so sorry. I had the fur babies outside.
No
I
problem.
am
Okay,
back.
I'm gonna hit record again. Well, not unpause it. Oh, no, I guess I hit the wrong button. It was recording the whole time. It's okay.
So I think for myself, it's just making time to
Mhm,
care for myself. And I always joke it's kind of like a full-time job, between the dry brushing and your vitamins and your medications. But
mhm,
I try to do at least one thing that I want
mhm,
to do. And that might just be listening to an Audible book that day, or it might just be a podcast
mhm,
that I've been wanting to listen to. And I think it's really important. So for myself, I've been really showing up for myself. Before this, as I'm going for surgery on Monday, I was showing up for myself on the treadmill and and I felt good about that. So not
mhm,
feeling guilty about doing things for myself.
mhm. And what's one thing that if you could, for someone who, let's say someone who just recently got diagnosed, what, what would you say to somebody?
I would say feel the feels, but don't hesitate. Like reach out,
Mhm,
find that support as quickly as possible because that really will be your lifeline as far as resources and someone to talk to. And I think at the end of the day, we all just want to feel like we're not alone. And so my message is you are not alone, and there are so many resources. So reach out.
amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Oh my
Aw,
gosh,
thanks for
it's so
having me.
yes, I'm so excited. And like I said, I will post Marie's information in the description box. I'm so happy you could be here, and I'd love to have you come back and we can talk some more about other things
Absolutely.
too, right? And especially because you said in September you're going back to Ottawa, right? So,
Yeah.
it'd be amazing to know more about that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I'd love that.
is there anything else you want to add or anything else you want to say
No,
before we
that was it.
finish off? No? All right.
No,
Well, thank you
thank
so
you for
much.
having me. I love you to pieces.
I love you. Thank you to all for joining. Remember, you are loved, you are seen, you are safe, and you are whole. Until next time, have a wonderful day.
Bye.